Are you sitting with thousands of hours of B-roll content and telling yourself, I'll start posting tomorrow? Are you in your head worried about your friends and family, thinking you're cringe for choosing to be visible? Are you chasing trends instead of building influence? Welcome to the Visibility Standard, where the visionaries of today are changing the rules of their industries and letting their voice be heard. I'm your host, Jasmine, and we are setting the standard. I'm so excited for my guest today. She is a master at debunking the lies that we see on threads, and she is very committed to accuracy, to bringing very nuanced information to light in a world that I feel like we can really jump into extremes really quickly. I'm so excited to talk to her today about the state of the world, what it's like to be a helper, a provider in this time right now. Dr. Jessica Rabon, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that lovely introduction. It
Of
was
course,
very sweet.
thank you. I've been following you on Threads for a bit. I think that's where I first experienced you, and I always was just so in awe of how you would address people who had inaccurate information and have just really taken a commitment to making sure the information that we're taking in is nuanced, is as accurate as possible, and correcting yourself when you see that you've made an error in what you said or new information has been found out for you. Why is that so important for you?
When I first joined social media, making like mental health content, like I've been on social media since like MySpace days to age myself. Um, I realized that like it is so hard to find nuance in social media, and mental health is such a complex, well, a bunch of topics. Like there's no black and white when it comes to mental health. And as I've been creating content now for 5 years since the pandemic started and have gotten more into like politics and the
Mhm.
intersection between politics and mental health, I have found that what social media attracts is those extreme, simplistic views because people are like, oh, I saw this, it's one sentence, it makes me angry, I'm gonna repost and reshare. So I've really tried to not fall into that misinformation trap, the just posting things to get a reaction, and really show people that there's much more nuance to this. And I've also found if you engage in nuance, engage in conversations that aren't black and white, you can really get more middle ground with
Mhm.
people, which is so important to me. Like you've seen this, social media people just like call other people names. They are like, I don't know, just mean.
Mhm.
But when you take time to pause, look up information, provide more nuance, correct yourself, I have found like you can create more connections.
Mhm.
You can, talk to people that maybe you wouldn't have talked to if you just posted something inflammatory or something to get likes and clicks. And, I fully admit when I first started on social media, like, yes, it's so nice to have a post go viral because it's controversial. And now I'm like, I would rather this reach like 10 people that really need to hear it rather
Mhm.
than 10 million just because I want to be popular, if that makes sense. Hopefully that answered your question.
Absolutely. I would consider you like the TikTok OG. You started during like the pandemic, a
Yeah.
lot of the content around like introducing yourself as a psychologist and really doing early content around putting mental health providers in the social media and content creation space. So you have like paved the way. Thank you so much. But now you've pivoted into a very different space. I wouldn't say more grounded. I think both of those journeys have been really authentic for
Mhm.
you, but leaning more into political discourse, leaning more into offering evidence-based information to the public. Did you always
Mhm.
imagine that pivot for yourself?
Yes and no. So I guess when I say yes and no, like when I first started on TikTok, I was doing all the little trends and things like that, but I would still sprinkle in like
Hmm.
evidence-based information post in there. And, they don't always do as well because people don't want to necessarily listen to a research paper. They like things that are
Hmm.
trending and things like that. So, like being evidence-based has always been really important to me, but I think as naturally I moved away from feeling the pressure to like just put out content and more like did some reflection on like what am I really passionate about right now? What's on my mind right now? I also think part of it is the fact that the sociopolitical climate has changed significantly since 2020.
Hmm.
And so I'm consuming that news. I'm talking about it in sessions with my clients, and there is such an integration between sociopolitical climate and mental health, and so much misinformation about both topics
Hmm.
on social media. And really, I found myself like, if I'm going to put out content, I would rather put out that, yeah, do take a lot of hours of research, reading, things like that are much longer, much more nuanced, may not reach that broader audience because it's not a trending audio or a
Hmm.
funny skit, but it aligns with more who I am as a person. And I'm a full believer in whoever needs to see it will see it. And if it doesn't land with certain people, that's okay as well because it aligns with who I am. So I guess yes and no, like the ethics and evidence base is still there, but like,
Hmm.
did I see myself making political mental health content 5 years ago? No, no, not at all.
It sounds like you've shifted from the content space of where like clickable is important and more so what's like beneficial because
Hmm.
you're right. We are in two very different political climates in that 2020, especially with George Floyd, the pandemic, everything that was happening because of the silos we were all in, responsiveness was really important.
Hmm.
Now, responsiveness is important, but there's a level of tact that we need to
Hmm.
have right now because we have such a reactive administration. We have someone who is so unpredictable and explosive
Hmm.
that we can't match that energy. We cannot always be responsive. We need to come in and really be thoughtful about the groundwork that we're laying because we are seeing right now a disaster and we
Hmm.
really want to be able to pave a path forward that is not only from a place of passion but also like tangible
Hmm.
and feasible for people. I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think, yeah, the pandemic, George Floyd, all of that was happening and we were all isolated. And honestly, that's why I started getting on social media because I saw the impact of the pandemic on people's mental health. But even then, we're all like, yeah, clickable. We like these trends, things like that. And over the years, like I have personally witnessed a bigger divide, more extremism on both sides. And I
Mhm.
always say this, like on both sides,
Mhm.
like people are extreme. And I truly believe, and this is just based on my gut feeling and no research as we're talking about, I'm so evidence-based, but that most of us are not actually on those extremes, but that's what gets likes, views.
Mhm.
Those are the Instagram or Threads posts that are put out there. And like you said, we need to be responsive, but we also need to, I guess, take things at a slower pace. If we're all reactive, we're not going to go anywhere. And I have found recently, I would probably say in the past couple months, I feel like a lot of people I've connected with also appreciate kind of like slowing down, the more nuance, things like that. And that might just be the people I surround myself with, but I'm seeing more people, who are on the left calling out misinformation on
Mhm.
the left, like those inflammatory posts. Same with people that are more right leaning calling out the more extreme posts. And I think all of us are getting
Mhm.
pretty tired of just everything being so reactive and inflammatory. And we know we're mental health professionals, and that's also not good for our mental health. If everything is a crisis
Mhm.
all the time. And social media naturally doesn't necessarily allow for kind of that slowing down. I mean, It's meant to hit that dopamine. That's why we have reels. That's why we have like minute videos, 15-second videos. But I think the more of us that are intentional about like, hey, yeah, I saw this, it elicited a big reaction in me. Let me just slow down before I post an inflammatory response.
Yeah, leaning into the extremism commentary, I was just thinking incorporating our clinical insight and the mental health aspect. I feel like the extremist side has become a survival tactic for both sides. It's become like a survival tactic, like really leaning in and harping down on your values, what you believe in. I think because there is so much contention and there is so much reaction to what people believe. I think on both sides, again, when we're thinking about the extreme ends of the spectrum, it's like you're attacking me for what I believe in. So now I'm going to double down on
Mhm.
what I believe simply because I don't want to believe that I can be swayed. And I don't want to believe that what I believe is.
Wrong. Hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, you know this, you're describing cognitive dissonance.
Mhm,
Like, if we are presented with information that goes against our beliefs, especially if it is in that more reactive inflammatory, we're going to double down on our beliefs because it's so much easier to be like, no, this is what I believe, and this is what I know, and this is what I've always known, than taking pause and being like, huh,
mhm,
wait, maybe I should look into this because that's scary and uncomfortable. Then you have to unlock everything you've learned. You have to admit that maybe what you believed was not right, which is a hard thing to do. And just also that state of cognitive dissonance causes distress. Like none of us like to feel in distress. And I think a lot of us are feeling that all the time at baseline. And so anything to add more stress on, we're like, absolutely not. I'm just gonna shut down, double down,
mhm.
not even explore this as an option.
Yeah, it's also, I think, it's how we've also isolated one another too in
Hmm.
conversations. It's really now I'm gonna bunker down on my belief. I'm gonna stay on this side, and we have the disconnection. We talk so much about the loneliness epidemic that we see. It's because right now there's such a huge commitment to misunderstanding one another versus allowing both sides to sit down and really understand one another. And again, when we see the government and the way they are trying to lead, they benefit from us fighting one another. They benefit from us not understanding one another and realizing we actually all want this very similar things in the world,
Mhm.
but you have isolated me and attacked me, and now I have no interest in working with you.
Hmm. Oh, absolutely. I get comments all the time from people on both sides that are like, you know, I was Republican, but then the responses of my party pushed me left leaning, or I was Democrat, but then the responses of my party pushed me more right. And then I have a lot of people that will be like, I don't even have a political home anymore because I don't like anybody, which I feel like is how a lot of
Hmm.
people probably feel these days. But like, I think you're totally on point with saying like we're just isolating one another. And, you know, you mentioned the loneliness epidemic, which is like there's research on it. And like as human beings, we are built for connectedness.
Hmm.
And social media has changed that. Like, on the one hand, now we can connect with people all over the world, which is wonderful. On the other hand, research shows we're not connecting with people in real life
Hmm.
as much. But if we have this sociopolitical climate, social media, mainstream media that is just further dividing us, and we're not getting our connectivity and human needs met, not only are we dealing with all this chaos over here, then we're isolated and don't feel like our basic needs of love, connectedness, empathy, all those things are being met.
When I decided to grow beyond the therapy room, I knew I needed systems that could keep up. Enter Jane App, the practice management platform that has my back. From online booking to charting to payments, Jane keeps everything streamlined so I can show up for my clients and create content, build my brand, and run my business with confidence. If you're ready to level up your practice, Head to jane.app and use code JAZZ1MO for a 1 month grace period. Is your content anyway a reflection of how you are now experiencing the world, or how your evolution within politics like has evolved? Like, is this a personal kind of journey that you've been on?
Oh, absolutely. Like I made a post about this. Gosh, it was the 2020 election, I believe, and how, like, if people can't see me, I am white, I am cisgender, I grew up upper middle class. Like, I have, other than not being a man, pretty much all the privilege. And I now recognize that. Growing up, I didn't really
Mhm.
recognize that. And I bring this up because I was one up until 2020, or no, up until 2016, that just kind of said, oh, I don't care about politics
Mhm.
because I have all this privilege that I didn't think politics affected me. I voted in, I'm aging myself. I voted in 2008. I've voted in 2016 and 2012. So I voted, but I was just very much like, oh, whatever,
Mhm.
until really I started doing the work I do and working with a lot of people that grew up in very different backgrounds
Mhm.
as me. I am from New England, so that has its own very different political climate than South Carolina, where I went to undergrad and live
Mhm.
now. I did my doctoral program in rural East Tennessee, which exposed me to a whole new, like, I've never lived in a rural area before. I was a city, like, city or suburbs. And so all those life experiences, and if I'm being completely honest, the fact that Donald Trump was running in 2016, and I was like, hold up, I need to learn more about
Mhm.
politics, really like got me interested. And then really, I would say since then, every year I've just become more trying to educate myself. Like I hated history through school. Literally think I only passed because the teachers liked me and I worked hard, but like didn't retain it. I'm reading history books. I'm reading political books because I'm like, I need to educate myself on what's going on. And then I truly feel like as a psychologist, part of my job is advocating for my clients outside of the therapy room. And if I'm not aware of what is going on in our socio-political climate that is directly impacting my clients, I cannot do my job as a psychologist. So that was a long-winded answer, but it absolutely is. And honestly, I think that's why so much of my content has become political, or the intersection between politics and um, mental health, because I'm having these conversations in therapy. And I guess I should also clarify, I work with kids and teens, some young adults, but it's not like I'm having these conversations with 30, 40-year-olds. I am having these conversations with 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 year olds that I'm in awe of because I obviously was not involved in politics at that age. Also, I'm like, I see the direct impact. I mean, before we hit record, we can talk about the one big beautiful bill and, potential Medicaid cuts, and how that I work in a hospital system. You
Mhm.
know, I would say at least 50% of the patients we see on Medicaid, how is this going to impact them? Like there's so many things, I have state level laws that have directly impacted my clients. In May 2024, all gender affirming care for minors was banned.
Mhm.
And so like I see the direct impact that politics has on what my clients are bringing to therapy. And I just feel like I would be doing a disservice if I was not educating myself and then also speaking up
Mhm.
about what I'm reading, seeing, advocating for.
Yeah, what you speak to segues like perfectly into what I was just thinking, in that mental health profession has really taken a stand in the statement of therapy is inherently political, in a way that did not exist in 2016, in a way that didn't even exist really in 2020. Like, so many providers, practitioners are really making it clear how this administration is impacting the world, and it is
Mhm.
our place, it is our duty to speak up. What do you think of this shift?
I personally love it. And I'm glad people are saying it. I've said this for years. Like, I do not regret getting a PhD in clinical psychology at all. I do think one thing that our field and psychology does not do nearly as well as others, especially social work, is the social justice piece. It's still
Mhm.
part of our ethics code, but I feel like social work does it
Mhm.
better
Yeah.
than others. And I mean, I'm glad more people are speaking up about it because, like, when I come across people that say it's not political, especially therapists, I think there's a misconception that therapy being political means we're just talking about politics or I'm trying to,
Mhm.
sway your views. But like how I conceptualize it is therapy is political means that the socio-political climate impacts the clients we are serving,
Mhm.
full stop. And what that impact looks like is going to look different. But like when you have lawmakers, either state or federal, making laws about healthcare,
Mhm.
about access to mental health care, funding for substance abuse treatment programs. How can you claim it's not political when legislators are literally making laws about it? And so all of that to say, I'm proud of our field for making this shift because I think it also opens the doors to therapists, psychologists feeling more confident in
Mhm.
speaking out about things. Like I said, I think the social work field has always done a really good job, but like, you know, and I know we're probably going to touch on this, but my training was very much you're like a blank slate. Like, yeah, there's certain things you don't talk about. And I feel like, having like the APA, the American Psychological Association, make statements against what some of the current administration is doing, then NASW, National Association.
Mhm.
Like those are governing bodies, like actually speaking out gives then all of us permission to also speak out and not be that blank slate that we were taught to be, to truly advocate for our clients
Mhm.
outside of the therapy room.
The ACA, American Counseling Association, I think is making steps. They're working on
Mm-hmm.
it. My background's clinical, and so I also love it because in our trainings especially, we learn interventions, we learn tools, we
Mm-hmm.
learn strategies. But when there are systems in place that are actively dismantling people's livelihoods, they are great. And we can't ignore that. Like, we cannot ignore the systems in place that are constantly shifting and evolving and taking away protections from marginalized communities. And so when we think about the statement therapy is political, it's yes, we have these interventions and we have to think about the system and society that we are functioning in right now if we are going to support clients and where they are. Because we're hearing
Mm-hmm.
fatigue, we're hearing depression and anxiety. And it's not typical depression and anxiety, it's collective like anxiety that we're all experiencing and tapping into that and being present with it allows us to better understand how we can support our clients and better understand how it's impacting us because we're still human. And like you said, our training tells us blank slate. It tells us that we we are simply a mirror. We are a vessel to the therapeutic process. But right now it is almost doing clients a disservice if they are not aware of the space that they are in. And I think a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people even hear that and they're like, oh, so are you just self-disclosing all the time? Or are you just talking about politics? It's like, no, our clients deserve to know that they're going to be in a space that understands them, is seeing their experience, even if we have not lived it ourselves, and wants to be in it and sort of support them in it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, I absolutely love what you just said there. And I think you also cleared up a misconception about this concept of therapy being political. Like, oh, are we just like self-disclosing all the time? Like, no. And I always say, like, if a client asks me my political views, I will be honest with them. I used to do the whole, like, why is that important for you to know? Because that's how I was trained. And then I'm like,
Mhm.
no, they want a human. But they're asking because they want to know if they have a safe space to talk about things. I have clients I have never once talked about politics, the sociopolitical climate with, and they've never asked. So it's not like I'm bringing it up. But for many of my clients, they want to know, or they'll come in and be like, oh my gosh, did you see
Hmm.
this most recent tweet from Elon? Or like things like that. And so I know that's what they want to talk about. And, I'm very much, I joke with my clients, like, I'll pretty much tell you anything about me except my social security number, my credit card number, and my home address. And just even saying that, like, gives them, okay, I can ask about these things because I have found for so many people, especially anyone who holds any marginalized status, if they are in a therapy room, they want to know that the person they are talking to is a safe space for them. What that
Hmm.
looks like for them is going to be different. And some people don't care. And that's fine too. Like, if you do not care the political affiliation of your therapist, if you don't feel like the socio-political climate is negatively impacting you in any way, I want you to hear this as well. Like, that's okay. You don't have to bring up
Yeah.
those things. And for many people, it is. And the only other thing I wanted to add is when you were talking about like the systems, like, we can do all these interventions, but if people don't know when their next meal is going to be, or
Mhm.
if they don't have enough money to pay rent and they're worried about housing insecurity, like me telling you to make a chart of your automatic negative thoughts and then challenging them is not going to do
Mhm.
anything for you
Yep.
other than probably frustrate you.
I
So,
am guiding you
like,
on box breathing, and you are going to get mad at me and walk out, rightfully so. But I mean, that just goes to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And
mhm,
people, I think it's a pyramid, and everyone has all of these other theories, but that if that bottom tier is not being met, if someone does not feel safe, housing,
mhm,
food, if the basic needs for survival are not met, everything else out the door. There is only so much that can be done at those other tiers if that bottom tier is not being met. And that includes in the therapy space. And that's
mhm,
where therapists, I mean, we become advocates, we become case managers and pulling resources and directing our clients to the right supports that they need. But therapy is and is continuing to evolve, and how people are consuming therapy is evolving. And it's
mhm,
up to us essentially to be able to explore what that looks like in meeting people where they are.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely agree with all that.
This has been like such a tidy like conversation. I don't it's like so I mean it's so wonderful to I mean talk to you and just hear your perspective. Like I said, I've just been following you for a bit and seeing your social media evolution and seeing, I mean, how your and hearing how your own journey has evolved is really inspiring.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think, with anything, we're all evolving as humans. And I feel like if we're not evolving, maybe we need to do some self-reflection on why that is. Going back to like, why are we doubling down on our beliefs? Why are we not open, to things? And, I know I already said it, but I think a lot of it is just connecting with other people on social media in real life that I'm learning from that have different life experiences than me, working with my clients that are from all different backgrounds, all different walks of lives,
Mhm.
learning from them and, recognizing that I still have a lot to learn and recognizing the privilege I grew up with and still have, and, dismantling beliefs
Mhm.
that I have had. And, I think as professionals, we obviously have a duty to our clients, but if we decide to be on social media, I think we also have a duty to advocate, but also inform people,
Mhm.
whether it's you're only posting mental health content or if you are in the political space or things like that, making sure what we're putting out there is correct,
Mhm.
evidence-based, ethical, but also like fun too. We're fun people too. Like I love me some dark humor, like things like that. I love little TikTok trends, things like that. But we now, I guess all of that to say, if we choose to, we now have a platform where we can reach more people,
Mhm.
especially those that may not be able to access therapy. And yes, social media is not therapy, but I don't know, we have the chance to impact
Hmm.
more people if that's something we desire. And I think all of us that go into the mental health field do so because at the core we do want to help people. We're helpers by nature. And, I'm just, at least for me personally, I'm always mindful with my social media. Sometimes I can be sassy, but mindful with my social media of what I put out there and, hoping it will reach the people that it needs to reach.
Yeah, I think that what you speak to, again, very nuanced, is that we can show up and we have fun, and our duty, our ethics, we have some responsibility to offer, whether that's advocacy, whether that's psychoeducation, whether that is offering accurate information. Like, we still have those back of our heads when we're posting. And so sometimes I'm like, can I just have free will take over on my social media for a little bit? I'm like, no, Jasmine, you cannot do that. And then I think about making a burner account and it just becomes its own ripple. But it is a different profession that has like different standards, and so many therapists hold themselves. That's why we got into this work, because we believe in it, and in order for us to be able to address the systems that we exist in, like, we've got to also shift how we show up and
Mhm.
continue just growing as people and as professionals.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, and this is a whole nother nuanced discussion, but I also think, we can be authentic while still being ethical.
Mhm.
So when I say like ethics, like obviously don't post client information and things like that. But I think part of it is also teaching the public, like, yeah, we're humans too. So if I want to post a sassy video that literally has nothing to do with my ethics code, I can because
Mhm.
I am a human. And I also want to show up in a way that, especially if you're showing up online as a professional, it's different if I'm just showing up as Jessica and has nothing about, you know, my job or anything like that. So it is a balance. And I feel like as more we're getting into the content creation space and doing that, we're all learning as we're
Mhm.
going. Because I remember when I joined in 2020, I was like, I have no idea. Like, is this allowed? Is this not allowed? The clients started finding my TikTok, and I was like, let's have a conversation about this. I was never taught in grad school how to have a
Mhm.
conversation about when your client finds your therapy TikTok. Like, because we're not taught those things.
Yeah,
Um, but it's more nuance.
definitely. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. As a closing question to all of my guests, I am asking, what is your commitment to yourself for 2025?
I love this question. And I know you asked that. And this was something I thought about like entering 2025. I am really committed this year to take care of aspects of my health that I ignored. So, you know, bone health,
Hmm.
making sure I actually go to the eye doctor, like things like that, because I've always been into fitness. I eat, but like as I'm getting older, had my second kid last year, I've been really focused on like what are aspects of my health that I've been ignoring because to be the healthiest version of myself, I can't ignore like
Hmm.
all aspects. So that's my commitment.
I love that. Well, thank you again for joining me.
Thank you for having me.